So today we're gonna make some kombucha. We love kombucha. It can be very expensive and no one wants to go to the store right now. So you can make it much cheaper if you just do it at home. So you only need a few ingredients. I'm gonna show you how to make a batch of kombucha, and then I already have some made that I have to bottle. It's this lovely mixture right here. This is my ready-made kombucha, and it also has 2 SCOBYs. SCOBYs are basically what will form when you're creating the kombucha. And I tasted this. It's been fermenting for about a week. There's my youngest, who's also documenting this. About a week to 10 days, but I tasted it and it doesn't have a lot of sweetness to it anymore. So I know that I'm ready to go ahead and do my second fermentation. So just to start out, you do need to have a SCOBY. Now, if you don't have a SCOBY, then you can make one using a little bit of bottled kombucha, that you maybe just an original plain flavored kombucha. You would make the kind of the recipe that I'm talking about right now, but you would only ferment it just to create a SCOBY. And then you can take, this is Oliver, my oldest, but you could take the same recipe just to make a SCOBY, and then you would basically just use that SCOBY and a little bit of the reserved, almost like a vinegar liquid, to then start to create more and future kombucha batches. That's what I did. I didn't have a SCOBY from someone else. I just made one. And so the recipe that I will link below in the description, you can use just to make a SCOBY, and then do the same thing again when you're ready to actually make your batch of kombucha. So my recipe that I have here is going to be for 8 cups of water. It's 1 cup of sugar and 8 tea bags. And I'm just using black tea, so super easy, not trying to make it difficult. So I took 4 cups of water here, and I added the cup of sugar, put it on the stove, heated it up to dissolve the sugar, and then threw in my tea bags. And then I basically just had to wait until this came to room temperature. You can throw it in the fridge if you need to, that's fine. But I have all of these tea bags that I leave in until I am actually ready to go ahead and make my kombucha. And then once this gets cool enough, then I'm gonna combine this with 4 more cups of water. And I'm gonna also combine it with a small amount of already made kombucha from this batch that I just did. This will help to kind of kickstart my flavors coming alive. And then I'm gonna leave this in the container. I cover it up for about, I don't know, another 8 to 10 days, and then I'll taste it, and then I'll be ready to do a second fermentation. So I'm just trying to create the first fermentation now. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my 4 cups of water, and this is just tepid water. I'm gonna scoop out my tea bags. And I was all out of my bulk tea, so I had to use the bag tea. If you have some bulk tea, you can go ahead and compost the tea rather than just throwing it away. If your bagged tea is in kind of just a organic filter, you can also compost that. So this is basically a sweet tea because I've used just organic cane sugar. I find that works the best, and I have my black tea. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour this into my pot. And then you have to make sure that this mixture has to be at least room temp or even colder before you put in your reserved kombucha that you've already had left over. And this could have gone through a second fermentation, even a third fermentation. It can taste like vinegar. It's just gonna help create that SCOBY and gonna create all of the sweet sugar flavor to be eaten away. And then it's going to have that more of an acidic flavor to it. So I'm just gonna stir this up. This is 1 cup. And then I have to add in my SCOBY. So clean hands, as we're all doing right now. I have 2 SCOBYs, so I'm gonna go ahead and add in my SCOBY. And I don't use plastic whenever I make kombucha. I always use glass.
Hold that SCOBY up so I can see it.
So SCOBY, symbiotic culture, something that I can't remember off the top of my head. But you need this in order for, this is what is going to eat all those sugars and then give us that more acidic vinegar type flavor. So I'm gonna add this back in. So I have 2 SCOBYs in here. The more batches of kombucha you make, the more this is turned into a SCOBY hotel, and you can give SCOBYs away to other people. If you have too many SCOBYs, you can also compost them. So if you know someone that can give you one, or if you can find somebody local, that's great. But again, you can make your own. You would basically do the same thing I'm doing here, but minus the SCOBY, and then because I've added some kombucha already to this, it will form a SCOBY on top, and then you can use that SCOBY to then make an actual batch of kombucha. But I'll put the information in the ingredient box, the description box down below. So this has to now go ahead and ferment. So I'm going to cover this up with just a tea towel because I don't want to get any bugs into this. This is just a hair tie. And then this is going to go into a somewhat warm-ish environment. I don't want it to get hot, but I'm going to put it just in a cabinet up above my refrigerator, and then I will check it in a week and taste it. And usually for me it takes about 10 days in order for the sweetness to go away, because I don't want my kombuchas to be very sweet. But I'm just going to go ahead and put this up into that warm spot and then let it sit. Now this is the batch that I had already made. It was already in my jug, so I've swapped it out. So in here, if you want to kind of, you can see some pieces kind of floating around in here. Carter's also documenting this. Thank you, honey. And all of this is the good stuff. That's what's going to help us with our gut health. It's going to help us feel really good. You can see a floaty little piece there. So when you buy kombuchas, usually you always have to like tip the bottle because all the good stuff is on the bottom. It's like the mother starter. So now I can go ahead and do a second fermentation. You don't have to do this, but I like my kombuchas to be fizzy. So, and all the bought kombuchas, they add carbonation to those, but you can get a little bit of fizz by doing a second fermentation. I can either put them in some flip top bottles, or I can put it into a jar with a lid, and then I will fill these up and I'll leave space. You can even put some like dried fruit in there, or some fresh, like fresh blueberries, or if I wanted to put in a couple pieces of fruit to kind of get that flavor, I could. And then I will let this go through a second fermentation and just put these just in a cabinet for about a day or two. And then when I go to check them, they will have a little bit of a fizziness to them, but they also will, more of that sugar will go away because it's being eaten by the mother in this case, or the starter that's here at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and bottle a cup of these, let them sit for a couple days, and then enjoy them. And in about, like I said, 7 to 10 days, I'll have another batch of kombucha that I'll be ready to do a second fermentation, and then have another SCOBY and just kind of keep the party going. And then there you go. It's pretty inexpensive. All you need again is some organic sugar. You could use honey if you wanted to do a June kombucha. In this case, I'm just doing a very traditional kombucha with black tea and cane sugar. You can try different tea varieties if you want to, but it's again something that can keep us busy, and it'll save us some money in the long run, because we know expensive. You know, a bottle of kombucha can be $3 to $4 just for one bottle. So now I can make probably like 5 bottles out of one batch, and I've saved myself some money. Thanks so much. Hope everybody's staying safe.
Carter, do you like kombucha?